story for God of War Ascension follows Kratos, and this is supposed to be a prequel, another prequel, yes, to God of War 1. But unlike all those other prequels, this one leads into God of War 1 very nicely. Like I said, you follow Kratos once again, and in the beginning you're actually already captured by the Furies. The Furies are these three women that their job is pretty much to go and punish anybody that breaks an oath, especially if you break an oath to a god, and that's exactly what Kratos did, so they had to go, of course, and punish him. So he's in chains pretty much for the rest of his life. Thing is, Kratos is angry and he wants to get revenge against these Furies, so of course he breaks out. While he's going after the Furies, there'll be points in the story where I'll actually jump back into like 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, and it'll tell you why he's here, what's the whole point, and the reason is because he keeps seeing visions of his dead wife and daughter, and he wants them to stop, and he knows they're fake. They're only because the Furies want him to see that, and they want him pretty much to go insane so he won't escape their grasp anymore. The story jumps from past and present a lot, and I actually think it's a very fluid way of telling the story of God of War. It actually does really work out. And while there isn't really much dialogue in the game, I do really like the story, mainly because it actually ties itself into God of War very well. And I'm talking about the first one, of course. You could play this game, finish it, and then play God of War 1, and you'll be like, wow, this ties in really well. I also liked Kratos a little bit more in this game. They didn't make him a complete asshole. And there's actually one other character that you meet in the game called Orkos, who I actually kind of liked. He's a Fury himself. He actually tries to help out Kratos a little bit in the story. And, you know, he was a decent character as well. So overall, I actually enjoyed the story, but I didn't think it was amazing at all. But it was fun, definitely. But now let's talk about the sound, which I like to start off by talking about the voice acting. And the voice acting here is very well done, really is. And especially, I love that guy that voices Kratos. He's voiced Kratos ever since the beginning, but I love that dude, I really do. And the rest of the voice acting is filled with people that we already know, like Troy Baker and Jennifer Hale, and they all do a great job. Thing is, the script isn't great, so all the dialogue you'll hear isn't anything amazing, but the voice acting is damn good. The soundtrack and sound design here are fantastic as well. Sound design, all the meat crunching, bone breaking, building smashing, just insane action is fantastically done. It sounds really great in this game. One problem I have is sometimes the audio cuts out at times really awkwardly, but besides that, everything sounds great in this. The soundtrack really does help out all those action moments feel really even more epic than they already are. So overall, the sound here is great, just like every other God of War game. Now let's talk about the graphics, which, oh my god, this game is beautiful. This is one of the best looking action-adventure games I've seen ever, especially when it gets into the more epic, vast set pieces with the huge environments, and someone's grabbing a building and you're inside the building and it's moving around, and this big hulking creature trying to kill you while you're in the building while you're killing other smaller creatures. There's so many epic set pieces like that, especially in the first hour, that it's just insane to see. The animations for some of the creatures, the way Kratos and all the other characters, their mouths move, and the way they actually just move in general, just looks so good. The action never slows down. The frame rate is just perfect in this game, and it's just a good looking game, straight up. The environments, the character models, the action itself, it is a spectacular looking game, just like pretty much every other God of War game. So there you go, the graphics here, phenomenal. And now let's talk about the gameplay, and God of War Ascension is exactly what you expect from a God of War game. You have the amazing combat system, the challenging puzzles, and you have some platforming. But you also have those epic set pieces where you're fighting a boss that's like, I don't know, 110,000 times your size, and you're just jumping on his arm or her arm, and you're just slashing away, and it is truly epic. I'm sorry, I say that word a lot in games, but this is really epic. I'm sorry, it is. It's hugely epic. And if there's any problem with the set pieces, I would say in the beginning and the end, there's plenty of them, but in the middle, there's not too many of them. But that's fine, because that's where the real gameplay starts to really shine. And of course, that real gameplay is the combat. And the combat here, just like in every other God of War game, is so good, so refined, so masterfully done. It's so much fun just to go and whip ass as Kratos in this game. Now, if I had any problem with the combat, is that they don't really introduce too many weapons. A new thing they do here is they let you pick up sub-weapons in the environment. Like you can pick up a spear or a sword or a shield and use those. But those aren't really fulfilling, and they're not really fun to use. You don't get any new weapons that are mandatory, like you just pick them up because you just killed an enemy, like in every other God of War game. Here you pick up what they're called elements, and they use these elements like fire and ice and electric, and they even use soul, which is supposed to be Hades' dark power, and they give you those and you can switch between them at any time, and each one of them has their own different set of moves, and you can actually upgrade each one of them. They all have their different type of magic that they can use, but the only real main weapon that you'll be using is the Blades of Sparta, which is kind of sad. But the gameplay is just tons of fun either way, so it doesn't really matter. And the upgrade system's back, so you can keep upgrading, get new moves, and it's always fun and never repetitive. Especially since the gameplay has plenty of variety with its many different environmental puzzles that you have to solve that are very challenging, and the platforming segments, which if there's any weak point, I would say it's the platforming segments, because, I don't know, there's some frustration in there, for me at least. I'm not very good at the platforming, and also I just think it's very generic platforming that we've seen plenty of times in games. But with that being said, I think the gameplay here is great. It's a lot of fun, and sure, there's misfires here and there, like the elemental abilities aren't as fun as having different weapons, and of course the platforming isn't great, but I think the campaign here is a lot of fun. Sure, it will feel familiar, but it is a very good time either way. But now let's talk about the brand new feature to God of War, and that is the multiplayer. And let me just say, I am super surprised to say the multiplayer here is a lot of fun, and probably the best hack and slash multiplayer I've played. You make your guy, and you pick a god that you want to align yourself with, and whatever god you pick, you get a certain different set of moves that you can do, and you can go into the multiplayer, of course, whip some ass, get some XP, buy some new pieces of armor or different moves for your character, and just make them super badass. The gameplay in the multiplayer never gets too chaotic. You know what's going on all the time, and it's actually a lot of fun. The gameplay here actually very much works with a multiplayer mode, which blew me away because I thought this multiplayer was just going to be a cheap add-on, but it was actually a lot of fun, has a bunch of different modes that we've seen a lot before, you know, objective and team deathmatch and all that, but it is a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend playing it. So overall, I think God of War Ascension is a great package, a fun single-player campaign with a great multiplayer, which surprised the hell out of me. I really enjoyed God of War Ascension. It's another great God of War game. Sure, it might be the weakest of the 4 main titles, but hell, you know what? I still enjoyed this. So overall, God of War Ascension, definitely go check it out. Thank you and goodbye.